YouTube, if you're seeing this for the first time, and there's a good reason for it. AmericanContingency.locals.com is a cache of all of our content that we've migrated because of censorship. We've been suppressed, we've been banned, so on and so forth, playing the violin, gotcha. What we want to do is adapt. So we decided to migrate all of our content in the produced form to AmericanContingency.locals.com. But what I decided to do for YouTube, because YouTube's actually been good to us. They haven't suppressed my personal page or taken down even my monetized videos that I've been doing with guns, which I'm actually pleasantly surprised in the world that is everything suppressed if you're a conservative voice. So with American Contingency, we do a production for the paid subscribers that is $5 a month. I mean, you probably paid that for a protein bar and a Monster at the gas station this morning. So on that produced side, we're about 2 to 4 weeks ahead, meaning the video that you're going to see is 2 to 4 weeks old. And it's a produced video, which is our #1 episode with me and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is a former special operations master sergeant, teammate, sniper guru, the list goes on, but he's one of our head instructors that manages survival, medical, and mobility. And the benefit of his experiences in being in the counterterrorism unit in Ireland and then migrating here to America and starting a family and a special operations career and now in business, you're going to benefit in seeing this video now. So expect more of these videos. I did an interview with a former Special Forces Group guy, Northern American Contingency out of Utah, and the list goes on. We will be seeing these 2 to 4 weeks late. If you're interested in seeing them now, you can go to AmericanContingencies.locals.com, which is down in the notes, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Also give that thumbs up because in the algorithm, it puts us at the top, and don't put a thumbs down. If you want to put a thumbs down, go somewhere else and give a thumbs down. AmericanContingency.locals.com. Thank you so much for supporting our message and what we're trying to accomplish with American Contingency and everything that is preparedness. Thanks, guys. Hey, what's going on, guys? American Contingency. I'm sitting down today with Kevin Owens, Master Sergeant retired Kevin Owens, who's been in the military since the 1800s. Kevin Owens and I served in special operations together. We stood side by side as snipers in special operations. And the most knowledgeable man that I know on the planet Earth is Kevin Owens because of his roots in the motherland, Ireland, being a counterterrorism operator, working with the Army Ranger Wing, Irish Ranger Wing, as well as becoming a Green Beret, living the American dream here as an immigrant. I mean, from painting walls in Manhattan to becoming an American citizen, fighting for this country. It's a pleasure and honor to have Kevin Owens on the show.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, man. No problem. Kevin Owens.
Michael Glover.
Come on, man. Why are you getting all weird on me?
What?
I don't, just kidding.
You're calling me by my whole name. It's like my mom trying to kick my ass. Kevin Owens, I will beat your ass.
Tell me about you did a post this morning.
I did.
And you post every morning. And I'm talking Instagram. Mm-hmm. You're now Insta famous.
I'm not.
Dude, a year ago you didn't have a social media page.
Yeah.
And how many followers do you have now?
Like 22, I think.
22,000. You're like 22,363.
I don't know.
What I think about, I think the coolest thing about your social media is you're so old, so you're able to reference so much material.
Leaving. I'm done. I'm tapping out.
I love it.
You get one. That's it.
3.
No more
T-jokes. In America, we do 3 strikes and you're out. Right. This morning you posted a picture of, I'm assuming, Irish police.
I took British Army in the streets of Northern Ireland, Belfast.
Yeah, with the children,
with little kids around them. Yeah.
Talk to me about that and kind of the context for that picture.
Yeah, I've posted some stuff about Ireland before, and I try not to do too many. And I am not a supporter of the IRA, and I'm kind of neutral in it, even though I grew up in completely immersed in it.
Like a member.
But I posted a picture of these little kids around a British soldier, and what I was thinking when I saw it was that, you know, life becomes so normal to these kids, to having soldiers on the street, breaking down your door, and riots and killings and murders every single day. It becomes the norm, right? And I've posted stuff about Northern Ireland before, and people have asked me, do you see a correlation or a kind of similarity with what's going on in America today? And I've always said no, not at all. But it's getting more and more like that. Every time it just gets worse and worse and worse. Every time I turn the TV on, it's funny because I lived just south of the border in Northern Ireland, so we got the Irish TV news, right? And we also got the Northern Ireland news from the north. And people used to call it the bad news program because it was all killings and murders and shootings and bombs and every single day. And it just, you get numb to it after a while. So I look at what's going on now with riots and you know, in Northern Ireland, both sides get entrenched in their beliefs, like the loyalists and the Catholics and the Protestants and the IRA and the British Army and the British police and the security forces. And everybody had a point of view, but people are so entrenched that their point of view is right that anything becomes acceptable. Any level of violence, any level of civilian deaths, any level of burning stuff to the ground becomes acceptable. And I see more and more of that from the left, to be honest. I'm trying to be impartial right now, but when Barack Obama got elected, anybody center right or conservative was not happy. And I personally, and a lot of people think he did a lot of damage to America. All this stuff we're seeing now is a product of his presidency. And but you know what? Me and you were in the military when Barack Obama got elected, and we went and we did our duty, and we deployed and we served our country, and we never protested, and we paid our taxes, and a lot of Americans did. And but now it's like the left, if they don't get their way, their default position is anything is acceptable. We will burn the country down physically if needed. We will burn businesses. We will riot. We will do it. They're like spoiled children with a temper tantrum, laying on the ground, banging their feet and hands on the ground. So I see a correlation now between the Northern Ireland piece, just in the fact that people are so entrenched in their views that anything becomes acceptable to get your way.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest, I'm trying to be impartial too, right? Mm-hmm. But the conversations we often have are based on objective reality. We are not skewing the realities. We don't buy into the headlines. We don't buy into the clickbait. We dig deep and we talk to people on social issues, on political, economic issues. And what I've realized, and I had this thought coming into this building today. Today, we've been talking about marketing and search engine optimization, this SEO. And what I've realized for the first time is the politicians now have their own action arms, and everything is meshed and optimized from the decision makers, the policymakers, to their abilities to weaponize human beings, influence en masse through media outlets who are acting on their behalf. We talked about this before, acting as propaganda arms. And it's like, now it's strategic, right? Now when I hear Chuck Schumer or I hear Nancy Pelosi saying, look, all options are on the table. We'll do whatever it takes to, essentially, paraphrasing, burn it down to the ground. I believe them.
Yeah,
because before it was like they would say this stuff and it was empty threats and it was hollow. But now it's so divisive, but it's so strategic that now we're going to see actual things take place, and violence, the inciting of violence, chaos. And they thrive in that chaos because now they could point the finger at President Trump and say, it's the administration. It's the toxicity of the administration, even though they're sitting there with the lighter underneath the fuel cell.
Yeah, it's politicians sicken me, honestly. All of them do, like on both sides. Like in 2016, there was an election year, and back then, Democrats were like, oh, it's completely acceptable to nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year. You have the it's your right, and it's your you must do it. It's what you're supposed to do. And Republicans were like, oh, you can't do that in an election year. Well, now that the coin is flipped, and it's like the Democrats are like, you can't do this. It's wrong. You shouldn't be doing. Like, it's completely 180, right? And the fact is that you absolutely can nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year. You need to fill that.
That's
seat.
What you do.
Yes, that's the system that we've been using since the beginning of America, right? So all of a sudden now they're weaponizing a population. People are because of the low attention span of people now and the clickbait, that you can put a headline out there and literally in the text of the post, you can completely contradict your headline, but nobody reads it. Yeah. They look at the headline, they go, oh my God, it's so bad that Trump is doing this. He's circumventing the Constitution. No. And again, if you look at the two parties, right? I saw a thing on social media the other day, and one was like, the Republican Party is not perfect, but the other side are lunatics. They're out of control, right? And where you sit is where you stand. But if you look at the two parties now, only one party is threatening to burn the system to the ground if they don't get their way. They've actually said that if Trump nominates, and he has the votes in the Senate to confirm a Supreme Court justice replacement for Ginsburg, and if they've said if he does that and Biden gets elected, then they will add 3 more states to the United States just to get more Senate seats, and they will add 4 seats to the Supreme Court, so they dominate everything. Yeah. And if they do that and they do gun control and they do all these far left policies, which they would have the ability to do, then we're looking at civil war. And I do not say that lightly, but I think that's extremely likely, because all these people that are conservative or center or just common sense people did not sign up for that, you know? So, but some part of me thinks that burning the country to the ground and inciting a civil war is what they want. I have to look at it and go, what is their goal? And I think some of them, their goal is just to burn the whole system to the ground. And maybe this is a mechanism.
The Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Gingrich, they're calling him
Ginsburg.
Ginsburg is called. We're calling her RBG, right?
Yeah,
RBG.
Yeah, notorious RBG that we call her. RBG. Like she was this mythical figure, you know?
Well, the thing that's comical to me is this idea that she said this on her dying bed, or on her deathbed, as a dying wish. Literally, and this is quoting, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed."
It's comical.
How the fact that you have politicians, Nancy Pelosi included, that will come to a platform and literally brief the American public that this was her dying wish, and that somehow, some way, us going against that in any way is not in keeping with the, I don't know, the beliefs and the value system of this country. It's the complete opposite.
It's comical.
One, that they politicized her death. I mean, she had pancreatic cancer. I think she was 87 years old. And they're like, there's some parts, there's news reporters, there's the Washington Post, there's politicians who are blaming her. Like, you should have died in 2021. You should have resigned during the Obama administration. Like, she didn't know she was going to pass away. She got pancreatic cancer, and she should have stepped down. In hindsight, obviously, there's not a good outcome for pancreatic cancer, and she passed away. But this controversy is coming from this idea, which was misquoted or misrepresented, where in a 4-year term, if this happened 3 years in, then you would wait until the next election cycle to allow the new president or whoever it was to be able to be installed. And we know that's not true.
No.
Was it 29?
Like 27 times, I think, in an election year, a Supreme Court justice has been nominated. And generally, if the Senate is controlled by the same party as the presidency, it's gone
17
through.
times.
Yeah, I think 17 times it's gone through. So, they're trying to spin this narrative that it's completely unconstitutional and unacceptable, and that's not true, man. You don't like the outcome? Tough. That's Obama put out thing saying it was wrong. I can't remember what the quote was. That's the same guy who said, elections have consequences. I have a pen and a phone and I can do whatever I want, is basically what he said. I don't need Congress or so spare me the outrage.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
I think the strategy of burning the country down by all means.
Yeah.
What I think is a poor strategy is because they have, they're trying to incite emotion, because if you're emotional about it, you're going to be likely to vote.
Yeah.
What a lot of these policymakers or the politicians on the left don't understand is that when they isolate their demographic, they are segregating another demographic, right? And so they forget that there's a Trump supporting group that's half the citizenry in America that support our president of the United States, and who see the outrage and who see them showing their ass, and are now, there's a whole bunch of Democrats that are coming out going, dude, I don't want to be any part of this.
Yeah.
Because whether you're looking at BLM, Antifa, the INFAC, all these groups and organizations that are taking advantage of circumstance in a lot of ways, everybody's watching this going, well, wait a minute. If Antifa, who's anti-fascist, is being fascist and acting out, and the former vice president Biden, is not saying anything bad about the organization that's actually burning American cities to the ground, then why would I be behind this group or organization?
I have to think every time I see riots and businesses of law-abiding citizens getting burned to the ground, I have to think you're just creating more Trump voters. I have to. I mean, what kind of a lunatic, even if you're left-wing in politics, unless you're extreme left and you buy into the lies that the media are telling you, then you should be looking at this going, okay, if Biden gets elected, it's not like the riots are going to stop overnight, because like any terrorist organization, and Antifa is a terrorist organization, and BLM is a terrorist organization. Everybody supports the notion that Black Lives Matter. Of course they did. The American lives matter. But the BLM is a racist, divisive, violent organization who want to burn the system to the ground, right? So you have to look at that and go, if Biden gets elected, it not only are they not going to stop, they're going to get emboldened, and they're going to push harder and harder, and they're going to burn one city to the ground after another, and Biden will never step in with federal law enforcement and stop them. So the only way this stops is if Trump gets reelected by a landslide. Then the American people have spoken, and then he needs to come in hard. There's always I grew up with this stuff, right? There's always a fine balance when you're dealing with riots and stuff like that, is if you come in too hard and too heavy, you incite more, especially when the media are on their side. Like the media, CNN and MSNBC, that's the propaganda wing of the far left, right? So you come in there and you get video, and we saw this in there was riots in the 80s that Thatcher, the coal miners went on strike in the 80s, and the media actually photoshopped photographs of like I remember one of a police officer on a horse, like riding after a woman running, and he had a truncheon in her hand, like he was like hitting her, but it was completely fake, right? But what they'll do, they'll weaponize the media, they'll turn public opinion completely against them, and even reasonable people will be like, well, the police came in and then they shot people and all that, you know what I mean? So there's a fine line. If you push too hard, you turn people more against you, but if you go in too soft and you wuss out, you get emboldened, and more and more and more. So there's a lot of people out there throwing Molotov cocktails who, because the media are with them, and because a lot of left-wing politicians are with them, and because a lot of these scumbags in Hollywood are with them, they feel like I must be doing the right thing. Every time they get away with it, they get more and more emboldened. And I just hope that federal law enforcement are tracking them down behind the scenes, targeting the money, and just throwing these people in jail in large numbers. But I think the federal government need to hold left-wing politicians accountable who don't enforce laws in their cities or states, because you have taxpayers in your state who pay taxes for law enforcement, and now you're not letting law enforcement do their job. So somehow those politicians need to be held accountable. But if you're even center left and you think that it's going to get better if you vote for Biden, you're greatly mistaken.
Yeah, I just did a post yesterday on. I'm tweeting now. That's like a big thing that old people do. So I'm big into tweeting, and we have a huge a lot of our demographic are minority. I mean, I'm doing a podcast with Byron Rogers, who's black, and he stands with me on a stage on American Contingency, and we talk about Black Lives Matter as a movement, and American lives and black lives always mattered.
Yeah.
The problem is when you look at the founders of the organization that are Marxist, who believe that capitalism and the system that exists is systemically racist and should be burned onto the ground. When you look at 1 in 6 protesters for Black Lives Matter is black.
Yeah.
The other people are rich white kids from
who hate
suburbia.
themselves and hate their parents.
Yeah, and who are I mean, this is that 20-year-old girl who throws a Molotov cocktail into a police car.
Yeah.
You're going to prison for 20 years.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy. Like, so where did that work out for you? It didn't. You know why it didn't? It's because you bought into the bullshit. And the problem I don't understand is why are we standing behind organizations that only end goal is to destroy this country, and we're somehow feeling like that's acceptable in this country?
People like me and you and the other thousands or millions of people who love America will never let that happen. You can play your little games, but when push comes to shove, we will never let that happen. The media is they're responsible for a lot of this, and I don't know how you do it with the First Amendment without violating constitutional rights, because I'm a firm believer in the Constitution, but somebody needs to hold the media accountable. Somebody does, because you're taking a scumbag criminal who opened fire at the police and is like, has got a rap sheet longer than your arm, and he shoots at police officers. Police officers defend their lives and shoot back, and now he's a hero in the community. You hold him up like he's the greatest thing ever, It's disgusting.
Which is Breonna Taylor. That's the circumstance with Breonna Taylor.
And
tragically,
I mean, she wasn't a criminal.
Tragically, she was killed. Apparently, she was on the same warrant sheet because he's living with her, right?
Yeah.
And he decides to pick up a gun.
Yes.
Because he says they didn't announce, which if they didn't announce, that's a policing issue, right? There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But when you violently assault and shoot, he shot a police officer and they returned fire and somebody's killed, that's called an accident.
Yes, he voted. He voted.
That's an accident. But now the National Guard, I mean, I got all the information relayed to me through the intel analysts at American Contingency, but they relay to us, hey, the National Guard's being called in, a state of an emergency. There's businesses boarding up. Like a lot of these businesses are black businesses. 50% of the businesses in Atlanta, Georgia are African American businesses. And you are burning down businesses because of your rage. And we're allowing criminals because somehow we want to facilitate the message. Somehow we want to make people think that we're on the same. When you disrupt law and order, which is the fabric and structure where everybody can assimilate, where communities can come together, where businesses can grow and thrive, that's the start point. When that fabric starts coming unraveled, that's the goal. You have nothing.
There's a lot of foreign money being put behind Antifa and Black Lives Matter and money from George Soros and stuff. There's outside entities that want to see America burned to the ground. That's the goal right there. And unfortunately, they're getting there, right? The riots going on all the time, and then they trigger anything they can and turn it into rage. And a lot of these rioters are... A lot of them are just sheep following the leadership. And a lot of them are a criminal element who just want to steal shit and break shit and hurt people. So,
well, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing is a great example of that, right? I mean, the fact that both the men who were killed had a rap sheet.
One was a pedophile.
One was a pedophile. And the kids, like I'm not going to justify him being there, right? He shouldn't have been.
He shouldn't have been there.
His mom supposedly brought him there. That's just dumb.
It is. It is.
In American Contingency.
And if you're going to bring a gun to something like that, you better be prepared to use it, and you better be prepared for the consequences.
The problem now is the laws that are written, and especially use of force for the police departments and citizens in self-defense, are being rewritten. Right? Kyle Rittenhouse, we raised $6,000 for his legal funds. And people have asked me, they're like, why would you defend somebody who killed somebody? And the difference between us and everybody else who's looking at this subjectively is we understand what the use of force in self-defense means.
Yeah, he'd be dead now if he didn't shoot those people.
100%.
He would be dead, yeah.
The last dude that approached him that got shot in his arm had a Glock 17 in his hand.
Yeah.
When he approached him.
Yeah.
They hit him in the head with a skateboard. They threw a Molotov cocktail at him. They were surrounding him and mobbing him. And I've talked to lawyers. I mean, Colin Noir is one of them that's advocated for the use of force legally, and he's a lawyer. And he's an African American, and he's like,
and he's pro Second Amendment. Yeah,
this is clear cut self defense.
It is
based off all circumstances.
So what'll happen now? That kid will go to trial, and they'll probably charge. I don't know what they charged him with, but
second degree murder.
Okay, that won't fly because there was no premeditation. There was no. I don't know if you need premeditation for second degree, but that probably won't fly because they overcharge these cases all the time because they want to show how serious they're taking it. Right? You don't show how serious you're taking it by overcharging. You show how serious you're taking it by charging what you can prove, right? So when he gets acquitted, riots and burn and people will be murdered and all that, you know what I mean? Because they'll and the media will be behind it and push it. I had a thought there when you were talking about the Breonna Taylor thing. That guy picked up a weapon and shot at the police, right? He voted. He brought the police there by his criminal activity. I remember when we were hitting targets in Iraq, I remember breaching a door and running into a house and stepping across kids who were sleeping on the floor. And like running across them to get to a crisis point, right? And I felt terrible because I mean nobody wants to hurt little kids, but those kids' dad voted. He brought us to that house by killing Americans and planting bombs and shooting American soldiers. So he's the one who caused that to happen, not us, right?
Yeah. Mayor Ginny Durkin. This is one of my favorite characters. That's part of this apparatus, which is it's like Bizarro World. To me, it's Bizarro World. Because it's so extreme.
It is.
And these are people who are in politically held positions that are running the law enforcement agencies. And she says this is based off of the president's he openly stated that the following places, including Seattle and Portland, will be defunded.
That's the way it should be.
Federal support.
Absolutely. Yes.
So she responded. I thought this was comical. The Trump administration's threats to defund Seattle, Portland, and New York are a gross misuse of federal power and blatantly unlawful.
Wow.
Unlawful.
Yeah.
This is somebody who facilitated CHOP, where 3 people were murdered. The Capitol Hill. And New York are gross misuse of federal power and blatantly unlawful. Trump, Department of Justice, and Barr's obsession with Seattle and me is irrational and, most importantly, a huge distraction.
Wow.
This is coming from a person who decided upon her own accord. Now all of a sudden she's on board with law and order. Dozens of people were violently assaulted. Some people were murdered under her watch because she allowed Antifa, BLM to come in there and violently protest, destroy businesses, destroy that whole entire beautiful town. And now she's coming out and saying, that's a misuse of power. I want you to hear my response because it was quirky. I thought it was funny.
Okay.
I said, the fact that she used the word misuse tells me the mental illness in these politicians is real. The abuse of power is why you're getting defunded. More so, when can we look at treason? And how about that citizenship? Treason, when you're trying to overthrow the sovereignty of a country, like how can these people get away with this? And there's no laws on the federal books that are preventing this.
I know. Yeah, she should be arrested and thrown in jail. I think Trump needs to go further. I think he needs to defund any college that pushes propaganda and into the youth that are too dumb to know that it's propaganda, right? The stuff that's taught in colleges these days is extreme left-wing communism, and the federal government shouldn't be paying for that. They should defund all that stuff.
Well, when you teach children, that's what they are. I mean, what is it, like 25 years old? You don't even have a developed prefrontal cortex. Like we're apes until
especially men.
We're not, especially dudes. I'm still an ape. I'm a gorilla. But you take somebody who is easily influenced. Look, when you grow up great in America, the symptoms and characteristics of democracy and freedom are complacency. You're complacent in every venue of your life, and that's the greatest thing about it. But when you start twisting this ideology and turning people of that are citizens against their own country, looking internal, thinking we're the enemy, thinking that Africa and Eastern Europe and all these different Russia and China are friends of ours. It's like, go over there and see how that works out for you.
Yeah. And then no experience. Like I remember when I was running sniper school, I looked at the POI and some of the stuff.
Period of instruction, the class.
Program of instruction, right?
Program of instruction.
Yeah.
I said period of instruction for 10 years. I'm glad you corrected that now.
Did you?
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I went through it. Some of it was outdated and some of it was wrong. And I'm like, if you put something out in a schoolhouse, and it's like this in colleges, if you put something out in a schoolhouse, people will defend that, argue that it's right because it's doctrine. They learned it in school, so it must be right. Kids are like that, right? The kids are like that, and they're getting brainwashed much earlier in college in this country now, you know?
Yeah.
If my kids were small again, I would absolutely homeschool them all the way through. I would
100%.
not put them in public school, but all through all the levels, all the grades of middle school and high school, they're getting brainwashed, and they will bring that doctrine, like they will argue that because they got brainwashed and they got taught it in school and they think it's right. That's why so many of those protesters are school teachers. Did you see that? Did you catch that? A lot of those people arrested are school teachers. That should scare the crap out of every parent in this country.
It should. I mean, absolutely should, because like when you're handing your kids over to somebody, and then they come back changed, and like somebody who says, I support Black Lives Matter. The only thing I want to do is have a conversation with you, because the difference between you and me is just the way in which we've researched and understand what we're supporting. If you look into Marxism and the founders, Karl Marx, obviously, and then the founders' explanations and why they support Marxism, and I say this in American Contingency Briefs, but Karl Marx believed that capitalism in itself was evil because it was founded off the backs of slaves that were traded in the human trade.
And it was back then.
Back then it was. It absolutely was. And it's so funny because I heard this podcast with Rogan and one of his buddies, and I won't name his buddy, but the context was that America, we had our own demons. And he kept using the word we are responsible, we are this, we are that. And Rogan simply said, look, it's not we. Like you keep saying we, like we did something here and now. You have no, I can't help that I was born into Asian American genealogy. Like that is the skin I was born into. I just happen to be white and happen to be Asian. So the idea that what you're born into, you're to blame, and then that the system that was founded because the people who set up the system were in that skin color. We often forget 400,000 people died during the Civil War in defense of African Americans and abolishing slavery. And this guy was funny.
The Democrat Party were the ones who had slavery and defended slavery, and Lincoln was a Republican. Let's not forget that.
And Jim Crow and Ku Klux Klan. That was the Democrats. We forget about that, but
we do.
When we look at history and we look at everything that lined out, this guy was like, well, we went into indigenous populations and kidnapped people. And he even said, look, that happened in the 14 and 1500s. But the Spanish, the world was trading. Me and Omar from the Iraqi Counterterrorism Force did a podcast on the Mike Force podcast, and we were talking about the slave trade in Africa today. Slavery exists in Africa today. You know why? Because there's no sovereignty. There's no government. There's no security. So you could do whatever you want. You want to go into a village and hack up everybody with machetes? You can do it. You want to go into a village and let everybody die from Ebola? You could do it. Because we have governance, we have security, structure,
and laws.
And laws. We don't have Chop or Chaz. We don't have DJ Jazzy Jeff coming in and trying to set up and abolish everything that we stand for, only to have people murdered, checkpoints to be set up, and then the destruction of our population. It's insane. Here, I want to shift focus on the CDC guidance and guidelines. I posted this on my story, and we've talked about COVID since day one. I think me and you did a podcast before COVID, and we did a podcast as COVID became a thing. Like I did a story wearing a mask when as my EDC when it was still in China, and everybody was like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "Because it's going to come here. That's what pandemics do." And the CDC guidance, they put out this blurb. This was tweeted from the CDC page. It says, there is growing evidence that droplets and airborne particles can remain suspended in the air and be breathed in by others, and travel distances beyond 6 feet. And it gives, for example, during choir practice, in restaurants, or in fitness classes. And general indoor environments without good ventilation increase the risk. So their guidance is that 6 feet doesn't matter. You get socially distanced, but if somebody with COVID walks through a building and they sneeze in the air with droplets being in the air, and you walk through that mist, then you'll be infected. But we still have 6 foot guidelines. We still have cities and towns and states in the country that have banned businesses, including gyms. California is leading the way in the wrong way. And then our examples by the CDC are practice. But you can, in New York, have a BLM protest, specifically as quoted by the mayor or the governor. You will be able to come in here and do any activities that are related to BLM, but if it's any other protest, you can't do it. The insanity with that.
You have to look at it, and anything that is being pushed by the left, and it's all the left, right? They're pushing masks, they're pushing all this stuff, and it's all these left-wing politicians. That I honestly think it's about the election. They want vote by mail, and I think it's going to be easier for fraud if you do vote by mail. I mean, and again, everything's on the table for the left to get rid of Trump and to take over and circumvent the Constitution and govern every aspect of your life. That's their goal, right? So when you look at, you can't do this, you can't have small businesses open, you can't go to religious services, there's more to it, way more to it than meets the eye. And people will say, well, the BLM protesters are outdoors, so it's not as dangerous.
But it just said literally beyond 6 feet distances. That's why I stressed that.
I was just going to say it's outdoors, but you're crammed in together like inches from each other, because there's so many people crammed into a small area like that it's just as bad as being outdoors. So I just hope that sensible Americans will look at people like de Blasio and Cuomo and Newsom in California.
They're already looking at it, right?
That's why they're jumping ship. What the hell are we doing? But if California is a failed state now at this point, right? Because everybody who has an income and a brain in their head is leaving. They're getting out in big numbers, and hopefully they won't bring their left-wing politics to places like Utah and Montana and Arizona. But you have to look at that. If you're a sensible, law-abiding American and going, I don't like Trump, but I can't vote for these left-wing lunatics. They have an agenda to burn the system to the ground and rule every aspect of your life, because that's what communism and socialism does. It completely rules every aspect of your life and tells you what to see, think, and breathe every single day.
Well, they already said, Nancy Pelosi was asked this by a correspondent from a liberal agency, and they said, hey, would you be willing to do an impeachment just to stall the progress of moving
it was Stephanopoulos, who's a left-wing attack dog for the and has been for decades, right? He worked for Bill Clinton, but he purposely teed that up to get it in there. Oh, well, some people have suggested you should do an impeachment to stop this. And what'd she say?
Nothing's basically off the table.
Yeah, she said,
we're not going to let her hand or show her hand.
We have many arrows in our quiver, she said. And then she restarted the conversation like she just had a senile senior moment.
She had a breakdown. Mentally, you could see ill. It disconnect. Like there was a gap in the...
And then all of a sudden, halfway through the conversation, she said, good morning. And she started again, like she rebooted her tiny little brain.
I think, listening to the Ben Shapiro stuff and collectively looking at all this unfold, what I'm scared of is I'm scared for American citizens. Right? Because when I say American citizen, I want, an American citizen to me is somebody who works because they believe in working to feed their families and to progress their lives and democracy and freedom. And so they're not out protesting. You know why? Because they don't have time.
No.
Because they got a family to feed. Who believe in, for all of a sudden, somehow, if you say the word patriot, it's assimilated with the far right, which I'm not a fan of either.
I'm not either.
We both have been we're probably, we're Green Beret hippies, right? I admitted on Amy Stump's podcast that I smoke weed. I do that because you know what's better than, you know what weed is better than?
Alcohol.
Alcohol and Ambien and Trazodone and the VA system. That's the solution for sleep. So when I say that, I get a little antsy because I'm like, oh wait, that goes against my conservative values. But I'm not a right winger because I'm not an extremist.
I'm not either. If you want to be gay, be gay. I don't care as long as it doesn't become mandatory. I'm okay with it, right? And you want to marry a dude, or you want to marry a female, you want to marry a woman. I don't care. I don't care.
We have never cared.
No. You know what it is, Mike? In the military, especially in special operations, we have every race there, and they're our brothers. We hang out. Like Omar from the ICTF, he did a post the other day. God bless America, greatest country in the world, man. That's a guy who grew up.
He's a truck driver from Iraq.
Yeah, he grew up in Baghdad.
Who was an operator. A tier 1 operator in the Iraqi special operations. We stood side by side doing combat operations.
Brothers.
And now he's a truck driver. And he's living in the America. He's happy as shit.
And you know. Muslims attacked us on 9/11. Wasn't Omar. It was somebody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Omar's like our brother, man. I'd do anything for that guy and all the other Iraqis we worked with for years, right? It just was never an issue. I remember we were at a sniper course one time, and you were down behind the gun, and the guy said, stop squinting. And Jason was like, he can't help it because you're Asian. That's funny, right?
Like,
he was like, oh my God. It's funny, right?
We're a family.
And
see this divide, which is creating these segments of like this tribalism, right? I think tribalism has its inherent flaws. But I also think in the power of assembling for the right reason. And I hate to say this, but this is kind of like an egotistical thing to say. And I remember the mindset from PLDC. Remember PLDC? Primary Leadership Development Course,
Many moons ago.
Many moons ago. I went when I was 20 years old, and it was at Fort Knox. And me and Kevin were the that year zone of going to PLDC, where a couple of job specialties came together. But I had a lot of women in my PLDC class. And when I had women for the first time being in the infantry, I realized how difficult it was to lead women. So I had to change tactics. So I changed tactics. And the egotistical part is I liked being in charge because I trusted myself, because I was a moderate. I was somebody who believed in equal balance. We had black females, white females. We had black dudes, white dudes. It was a conglomerate of the American Army. And I knew that I could lead because, one, my ethnicity, right? The Asians were like the neutral race. We get away with everything. But I had this opportunity, and I trusted myself in that opportunity. When I look at American Contingency, I don't want to be the leader. I want to be the conduit to bringing people together, to let them connect with you and your expertise. And I kind of want to segue into that because I'm fearful for this idea of civil war. I am too. Nobody wants that.
Not
a lot of people know this, but you named American Contingency. I think I named it American.
I said the contingency, and you were like American Contingency.
We came up with it together. We were there in the beginning stages of all this unfolding.
I remember you talking about a vision like this right here, and I was like, man, that's a bold vision. And here, a couple of months later, it's coming true.
Thanks to the guys. I mean, everybody and the gals who. Heather and Kurt and Jay, all the new people coming together. That's why this is
badly
happening.
Needed. It's needed.
Well, one of the ideas is, we have to line out a path to preparedness. And preparedness is what we do for Fieldcraft survival. That's what we teach. That's the lifestyle that we live. But when I think of American Contingency, it's this broader idea, which is, and I told Andy something on the podcast this, and I didn't even tell you this. But I want this to be, the trusted news resource. Because I can't trust Fox News.
No, you can't.
Right? Because they have an agenda. Right?
It's about
I can't
money.
Trust CNN. And it's all about money.
It's all about money. Rage stirs viewership. Viewership stirs dollars. And dollars millions and millions and millions of dollars. So if you enrage a population, all they care about is you tune in. Now, what that does to the country, irrelevant to them. They don't care. So it's a corporation. It's a soulless corporation. All of them.
If this civil war kicks off, if it kicks off tonight, what does tomorrow look like?
Oh my God. I really hope it doesn't. I just... I hate to even think about it, honestly. I really do. I hope we can get control of it. But every day that goes by, it seems less and less likely that we're going to get this under control without violence. I really do. I think I think if Biden gets elected, and they add 4 more seats to the Supreme Court, and they come with their they're emboldened, and they come with their far left politics, and they throw out the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, and do whatever they want, that will lead into a civil war. And it won't be black versus white; it'll be patriot versus freaking socialist, basically. And I hate to think what that's going to look like, because I would hate to see fighting in the streets of America. But if Trump gets elected, either way, there's going to be violence. If Trump gets elected, the left are going to see that as an opportunity to vent their rage and burn the system to the ground. But I do think if Trump gets elected, and he needs to take that as the American people saying, we trust you for 4 more years, stop this BS that's going on. And I think at that point, the water cannons come out with the dye that you spray people with, so you can identify them later on and arrest them and throw them all in jail. That's I would take the gloves off the federal law enforcement, and I would go into every city, and if the mayor tries to stop you in Seattle, I would arrest them and throw them in prison for treason.
That's where it gets crazy, right?
It does. It gets. But I don't know what the other solution is, because it's not going to peter out. They're trying to keep this momentum going. They have a lot of money behind them, foreign money. So they're trying to keep it going. And then, like I said, if Trump gets elected, they're going to see it as emboldenment. They're going to see it as rage. They're going to weaponize the population with the media behind them, and something's got to give. So at a certain point, you have to fight for America. And if civil war did break out, there's a lot of people. Mike Ritland talked to me about this. There's a lot of the varsity team are on the bench right now. Once the varsity team get involved, all these vets with 20, 25, 30 years of training and multiple combat tours and a lot of guns, once they get involved, it probably could be over pretty quickly. If they really wanted to get involved, I would hate to see that happen. I really would. It's ugly, it's horrible, and it would damage America for good. So I'm just hoping that this thing gets resolved, but I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, the mainstay is the media's role in this, right?
Yeah.
Which is we think about this idea of the freedom of the press, right? Well, now it's become this reckless ideologues that are doing damage.
Yeah.
And this is not reversible. We'll be dealing with this, even the stuff that's happening right now, for a decade, for certain businesses to recover. The COVID on top of that, it's like the perfect recipe for disaster. We're already experiencing many catastrophes, but I think that pinnacle moment, which is the election cycle, is going to be catastrophic. I already know this because this just got updated this morning, but Louisville, Kentucky, where this Breonna Taylor stuff is taking place, the National Guard's being called in. They've already been mobilized. They've already issued a state of emergency. And so you think about election night. If you're not activating your National Guard per your city, per your state, you're making a mistake.
Yep.
Right? If you're not getting ahead of security, if individually you're not bearing, stockpiling arms and ammunition, life sustainment, you're behind the power curve.
Yeah.
And I don't want to incite people to think that I'm preparing you for war, but you should always prepare for the worst case scenario.
You should be ready to hunker down.
Yeah.
You should be ready to hunker down, because going to the grocery store may not be an option.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a left-wing city run by a left-wing mayor, because that's what they're going to burn that thing to the ground. So maybe it's time to bug out and go visit your relatives in a rural area. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's important that people understand that American Contingency always advocates for you defending yourself, your family, your community first and foremost. And there's rare exception to this. In fact, I talked to Andy Stumpf about it recently, and he kind of changed his tune a little bit, because I said, listen, my mom, who has owned her business, came here from Korea. My dad met her as a soldier, brought her here. She started her business. 40 years in the making, her business has been here. Yeah. She calls me and said, there's a Black Lives Matter protest. They already burned down several businesses.
I remember. She was crying on the phone.
She was crying.
Yes.
And I'm like, the things that I will die for.
Yeah.
Livelihood, my family's livelihood.
Yep.
And I will not let a bunch of loser criminals burned my mom's business down to the ground. Thank God I had special operations buddies of mine on the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force, to be able to respond. It's like, oh, insurance will just handle that. Tell that to an immigrant who came here for 40 years of her life, started a business from nothing. And that business is what pays to pay her bill. Not pays to get her ahead, pays to put food on her table. You know, like it's insanity. But I will not let that happen. And so livelihood, the protection and security of your family, that is first and foremost. You don't need to die for a bronze statue. You don't need to die for a building, a federal building. But the things you should be preparing for now are when you have to protect what you love most.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Kevin, this is the first one, man.
Oh,
this is the first time we did. Yeah, we're done.
Oh, man.
What I did was I put an IRA background because it's a green screen. So you get there's war and chaos, and I got unicorns and stuff on my side.
Don't do that.
This is a good studio, man. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool.
Next week I got Kawa, Kawa, 2 Alpha 2 Quit, former 5th Special Forces Group guy. I already got guys lined out. Byron Rogers, him. Hopefully get Andy Stumpf out here. Evan Hafer, who's down the road. So it's good. But you're probably going to work yourself into a co-host position.
Come on, man.
So everybody who's watching this and you're getting good if you're leaving feedback and you want Kevin to be a co-host because you like his accent, make sure you leave that.
Don't do it. You need to get Candace Owens.
I will.
Yeah, that girl's awesome, man.
She is awesome.
Yeah.
Is it because she's an Owens?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
That's an Irish name.
It's a Welsh name, actually.
A Welsh name?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to let you guys know that this entire show is brought to you by you guys, American Contingency. Because you pay your membership fees, and we ask only for a minimum of $5 per month, that is what's paying for this production, what's paying for the line out of news, media, intel, all those things, classes and courses that you guys went to in South Carolina and will do across the United States. That's what's paying those bills. And I want you to know that because I don't ever want to commercialize American Contingency. We will have deals, we will have groups and businesses and organizations that we work with, but this is for you guys, and I appreciate you guys so much, because if it wasn't for you and your subscriptions, we wouldn't be doing this right now. So thank you guys. Till next time, peace out.